always have the recording. So, good afternoon, everyone. This is Raj Varoja with Uphold, and welcome to a conversation with Uphold. These webinars are hosted by Tech Leaderboard and J&K. Tech Leaderboard is the platform where companies in the crypto, blockchain, technology, and energy spaces can connect with institutional clients and retail customers. On a conversation with Uphold today, we have a very special call with Polkadot, the Web3 Foundation's flagship protocol. From the foundation, we have Dr. Radhakrishna Desari, who's a technical education lead, and Dr. Jonas Gerlin, research scientist. Today's call will be moderated by Dr. Martin Hiesbach, head of blockchain research at Uphold. A reminder, all questions are to be posted within the window here. We'll do our best to answer them live at the end of the call. And without further ado, Martin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Raj. Greetings to New York. I just realized this is the three doctors call. Hello, Dr. Jonas. Hello, Dr. Radhakrishna.
Hello.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming on a consult with Uphold. It's very exciting to talk to you. The Web3 Foundation is the company behind Polkadot. Is that correct? The foundation behind Polkadot.
Right.
And so Polkadot is the name of the chain. The token is DOT for anyone who's confused about this. My first task is to place you in the blockchain space. There has been a lot of, also in the current discussion, there has been a lot of media attention in the past few weeks about Ethereum 2.0, the merge. There's not the merge now, the merge will come later. It's been renamed 3 times. So Ethereum is one thing. And how does Polkadot fit into that? We've got our layer 0s, layer 1s, layer 2. Can you describe the position of Polkadot in the blockchain universe and what makes it a unique platform?
Yeah, thanks for having us over, Martin. So let me start out by saying, one of the common misconceptions about Polkadot is that it's some kind of Ethereum killer. I'd like to, remove that misconception today for the audience who have joined. Polkadot is a layer 0 blockchain. So by layer 0, it's a blockchain of blockchains, which blockchains that could be like layer 1s, like Ethereum. So technically, blockchains like Bitcoin, Ethereum, or any other layer 1 solutions out there could run as parachains on Polkadot, right? So we're talking about a fully sharded, production grade blockchain that is out there. So which is like Polkadot. So which is a blockchain which can have parachains that run their own logic, like Bitcoin, like Ethereum, or any other blockchain out there. So that gives.
Excuse me, you are not killing Ethereum, but Ethereum could run on Polkadot.
If they would like to, so it's more of a political thing here, like.
Of course. I mean, theoretically, hypothetically speaking.
So the technology supports it. Like you could see chains on Polkadot that are, replicating the functionality of Ethereum, or even like adding more functionality than Ethereum.
Please go ahead.
Yeah. So I can explain like what Polkadot is doing in terms of like the sharding I just mentioned, which is on the roadmap for Ethereum as well. So Ethereum, when being a layer 1 solution, if it implements sharding, it's going to be like a homogeneous sharding, meaning the same state transition works on like all the shards, the logic.
Can you explain the term sharding?
Sure. So right now we have Ethereum blockchain, right? So it's getting transactions from all the users across the world. It's processing in a sort of a single thread. So transactions, when the volume goes up, so there's a lot of clogging there, the gas price goes up, and every transaction goes sort of like sequentially. So if you want, these transactions to be executed like parallelly, so we're talking about the execution sharding right there. So that's the sharding concept at a high level. So Polkadot, sort of has these parachains which are going to be executed like in parallel, And a parachain can have like multiple copies of itself on Polkadot, implementing a homogeneous sharding if required. I hope I'm not like overwhelming with too much technical jargon here. The point I'm trying to
I will stop you when I can't follow you. I will ask you to explain stuff.
Yep, definitely.
Don't worry. If you're the layer 0 blockchain and other parachains, as you call them, run on top of you, that means that you're guaranteeing the interoperability of these chains through the layer 0?
That is correct. So we have
no bridges.
So we call, so the bridges to the outside world are like, the interoperability XCM in Polkadot world. So let me give you a couple of examples. I mean, you would have seen a lot of, news items related to hacks pertaining to like bridges elsewhere in the ecosystems. So that sort of problem, especially the recent Ronin like hack where a bunch of validator
the keys, $600 million. Oh my God, yes.
Right. So the validator keys got, somehow compromised through social engineering, and then, that hack sort of happened. So the scope for that happening on the blockchains that are on Polkadot is what? Like you have to attack the Polkadot network as a whole to actually, attack a bunch of parachains talking to each other. So the way Polkadot is designed, I know we're going to talk about staking like later on. So all the people who are actually staking their dot, so that level of economic, power is at stake right there. So the attackers have to, attack it at such a level to influence even a single parachain's, communication with the other one.
To chime in on this, I think it's important to kind of emphasize the fact that each parachain is as secure as the relay chain itself. So as like Polkadot itself, right? So this is like different from bridges. So we still have bridges towards the outside world, but like within the Polkadot ecosystem, within the parachains, they all benefit from 100% of the security.
Mm-hmm. Could you give me some real life applications, like what kind of functions are performed by a parachain that runs on Polkadot, like a real life example?
Sure. So right now you could go to a website called parachains.info. So it lists all the projects that are already parachains or have become parachains. So we have about 14 parachains live on Polkadot. We have about 32 parachains live on Kusama. So I'll talk about Kusama in a bit. So that's our Canary network. So these are like application-specific blockchains. So I can talk about the assets parachain called State Mine and State Mint. So these are common good parachains on Polkadot, meaning so they secure a lease on Polkadot by just giving a public infrastructure for the DOT ecosystem. So it's like an assets parachain. There you can mint tokens like ERC20 tokens. You can mint NFTs if you'd like to, and that entire parachain is sort of governed by Polkadot. So a dedicated parachain for assets. So there are a bunch of parachains that are already live, doing a lot of decentralized finance. So there's a parachain that does like decentralized, ID management, like identity on like blockchain. There's a parachain, focusing on Internet of Things. Yeah, so plenty of like use cases. There's a parachain on decentralized cloud compute. I think Jonas can talk about that. There's a parachain on decentralized network storage. So all of these use cases, if you think about it, we started the blockchain journey with like Bitcoin, which was like a decentralized ledger. And then we started, using Ethereum, which is capable of executing like smart contracts. And now we are transitioning into more and more use cases from Web 2, right? So we're transitioning into Web 3. And to do that, like Polkadot was doing a lot of contributions to the field of Web 3 by increasing the technology to, actually support all these exciting applications, which sort of benefit from being on a blockchain.
And I think what is the really cool thing here is that all these parachains are super expert in their field are now able to actually interact with those other parachains, right? So this really opens up the possibilities for super cool use cases in the future, that you kind of, one parachain can use the services of another parachain and then, send, for example, assets around or have messages passing through the relay chain itself.
How do I get a parachain? Do I pay you exorbitant sums of money? Do I stake a lot of DOT? Or is there maybe like an auction that I could win?
Yeah, so you're exactly right. That we have these auctions, these candle auctions, where the relay chain.
Why is it a candle auction? What is a candle auction?
Okay, so a candle auction, I don't want to go into too much detail because it would probably take too long, but a candle auction is like a real auction format, I think from the 1600s, where literally people were able to bid on something until a real candle expired. And this kind of should induce kind of the uncertainty about the end of the auction, right? Because if you think of other auction formats such as eBay, what you can see is that many people are really waiting until the last second to kind of squeeze in their bid. And that is like from several perspectives, not very efficient. And having this uncertainty about when the auction actually ends induces the people to just bid upfront. And that is a very desirable attribute in auction theory. And this problem also gets bigger on a blockchain because you have like the mempool and you have latency and so on. So we actually use this candle auction to induce that just bids are just done as soon as possible, which should lead to better results. And it also does. But to come back to your question, we have these auctions where the relay chain basically auctions off those limited slots. So we have a limited number of slots. And whenever a resource is limited, you kind of need to have some allocation mechanism, and auctions are a very good way to do it.
Yeah, to add on top of that, you don't need to pay anything to, become a parachain on Polkadot. You actually bond your tokens, meaning you're not actually giving away your DOT tokens. So you're bonding it over the parachain's lease, which is about like 2 years now. And another interesting feature is you need not even, put your own dots as a bond. Like you can use a facility called as crowd loan on like Polkadot relay chains. So crowd loans are these like trustless way of like contributing to bootstrap a project to become a parachain. So this was inspired from all the scams that happened with ICOs back then. People giving their tokens and the projects running away with that money. So to eliminate such scenario in Polkadot ecosystem, so we have these trustless, permissionless crowd loans where a DOT holder, if they like a certain project, if they believe that the project has some utility or value addition to the ecosystem, they can actually loan their DOT for 2 years of duration. And let's say the parachain does really well, so after 2 years they don't even need that sort of bootstrapping. So you get back your tokens and you can use them to like bootstrap other projects or whatever.
So you're giving me time and a place to develop my project and make it economically and technically viable.
Exactly.
You're like a startup incubator.
So every DOT holder is sort of a venture capitalist on his own, I would say, like a tiny venture capitalist. And one more interesting thing I want to point out here is we have Kusama. So Kusama is like the canary network for Polkadot. It has real economic value. Kusama token, has economic value. So a lot of the parachain teams which want to become parachains on Polkadot, so they start their journey on Kusama. So that's where
Is it called a canary network because it's like a canary that goes down the mine?
Yes.
It does. Yeah,
Yes.
it is.
Okay.
So
Poor bird.
Yeah. So
It's
Polkadot
doing quite well.
Yes. Yeah. Polkadot is this enterprise level blockchain. So we don't want anything to go wrong on Polkadot, right? So for that, the only way to test it out is, so as a programmer, we write the code, we create a good program, but it might like work like seamlessly. But when you put it out in a real world scenario with some economic, thing in economic value in place, so you won't be able to model all sort of behavioral things that you do with that, right? So Kusama is going to serve that purpose. So you can test out all your blockchain logic on Kusama, see how people are using it. If there are any vulnerabilities, you'll be able to track them on Kusama and ensure they don't show up on Polkadot. So this includes the core Polkadot as well as core logic of all the parachains.
The number 2 keywords in my area of research right now for Uphold that constantly pop up, the 2 big themes are scalability, because of the Ethereum problem. With scalability, of course, comes price. The gas fee problem we have just seen last week with this absolutely ridiculous launch of this, what was it called? Other edge? What other side?
Other side.
That made Yuga Labs $300 million. It's insane. You could save India from overheating, and solve the problem of hunger in Ethiopia with $300 million. And instead, we are doing NFTs and give gas fees to Ethereum. So the scalability of a chain. Sorry, I had to rant on that because it upsets me so much. The gas fees are a problem. The scalability and the interoperability of the chains. How does that work? How do you solve that? How expensive is Polkadot, and how interoperable are you?
Yeah, I'd like to highlight that there is a feeless, there are feeless parachains as well. So think of this, like once you become a parachain by bonding your tokens, technically you have, the throughput for putting your blocks on finalizing your blocks on the relay chain for 2 years, right? So the parachain sort of like solve this gas issue. So parachains can be developed such that things like this can scale a lot. And also I keep hearing this misconception a lot of times, like why 100 parachains? Okay, so if you can only support 100 parachains, how scalable, how do you call Polkadot as a scalable solution? So I should mention to you that not every blockchain application needs to become a parachain. So you can think of, so we have layer 1, layer 1s that are becoming parachains. And on top of that, each layer 1 blockchain can support a lot of other applications. So we're talking about, individual chains like supporting like more and more applications. So yeah, so and also this 100 number is what we think that sort of works. So for now with the resource constraints, but as technology improves, we might be able to support more and more like parachains. And Jonas, you had something to talk.
What I wanted to say, what is kind of important here is also the consensus mechanism, right? We have proof of stake or a nominated proof of stake, which is already an improvement in scaling to other, like for example, proof of work things. And then of course, like the thing we talked about at the beginning, sharding is a very major factor of scaling this. So we kind of achieve a lot of transactions per second, which is the general conception of people about scaling. What I want also to say is that there's another very important aspect of scaling is actually like scaling of security, right? So actually, Polkadot is also able to scale the security by its shared security mechanism, right? So if we think about maybe not so distant future where a lot of blockchains are in place and having economic activity, it's not really feasible for them to all secure themselves because there's just not enough resources around, right? So we kind of need these shared security mechanisms to kind of also be able to scale the security further. And I think that is a very important fact that gets dropped a little bit too often, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I want to go back to the real life examples. What is a parachain running on Polkadot, a real life application that you could describe? Is it, since you're saying the Polkadot itself is enterprise, it's an enterprise solution, what projects do you have with which real life applications on Polkadot?
I mean, one example would probably distributed cloud computing, where a lot of like the parachain has a lot of different miners that actually do useful computations, and those can be organized in such parachains. Then, of course, there are like DeFi chains where you have all the decentralized exchanges, for example. There can be stable coins around. You also have parachains that are kind of EVM, so Ethereum virtual machine emulator kind of, which, where you can deploy your Ethereum smart contract and also tap into the Polkadot ecosystem. And then, as Radha, I think, also mentioned, there are decentralized identity protocols where, like all this decentralized identity is organized, where people can log into other services. They have a decentralized identity on chain, which they can kind of determine how much they want to expose to other services.
Yep. To add we have like metaverse, related. I mean, it's not a reality yet, but so we have metaverse focused like parachains as well. NFTs. So there's Internet of Things, meaning like you can have a certain app installed on your phone, and then that sort of helps you interact with a lot of things that are out there which support like Bluetooth. So all of these, so IP addresses in themselves are sort of limiting, right? So having like a Web3 based address sort of helps Internet of Things sort of scale, and you do it on blockchain. So you give rewards to people who are like actually contributing to their network infrastructure. So all of these real world applications are being supported by Polkadot through parachain.
Internet of Things. So could I, for example, as a city, I'm the city, you're calling us from Portugal right now, from Lisbon. I'm the city of Lisbon. I'm building a smart city with millions of sensor data and parking systems and watering system for my public parks and whatever a smart city it's. Can I run the Lisbon city parachain on Polkadot?
Sure. So that's the thing, like not every application needs to be a parachain on Polkadot. So you could use the parachain service that is already there. So we have a parachain called Model Network. So you can look it up. So they have what they call like a citizen network. So it's like you install an app on your phone, and it opens up like a Bluetooth channel and it connects with other phones that are operating the same app. And also if you use their SDK, you can actually connect to. So let's say the smart cities has like a bunch of lights, which are like smart lights, and they send like I'm alive signal like every day. So if one of them stops sending that signal, that's not functional, so you can go and repair it or whatever. So all of this can be done in a decentralized way without any infrastructure setup. So it could be just like phones which are facilitating those messages passing, and because of like blockchain technologies, we know exactly who sent that message and how they can get rewarded in each era. So all of these interesting applications, the user can be anonymous. They need not expose like their identity. All they need is like set up that app with like a Polkadot address, and they get rewarded for doing that. And I want to highlight.
Please do.
Yeah. So earlier, Bitcoin is like a decentralized ledger. So it's good at keeping track of balances. So Ethereum, it runs smart contracts, good with NFTs and all the things that we talked about earlier. So now we are looking into the future. right? So we are looking at Web 2 to Web 3 transition, and it can only happen if you have like a really strong technology, with a good user experience. At the end, people don't want to know that your application is running on a blockchain. They should just be able to log in on a website and then access it like seamlessly. So improving that user experience, if that is your focus, then you should be looking at Polkadot, which is an upgradable protocol. It's not like Ethereum where you have to hard fork each time when a new feature is sort of rolled out. So Polkadot has these forkless self upgrades. So I was going to talk about this like later on. So our futuristic technology, which uses WebAssembly or WASM, sort of allows the protocol to upgrade itself. So you can start as a basic product and then keep updating your protocol, your technology as you go. And people talk about quantum, thing that it will break all the wallets. So even if that is the case, Polkadot sort of can upgrade itself on the fly, and then be a performing blockchain even after that post-quantum world.
So you are quantum-proof blockchain. I need to, before we get into the staking discussion, which seems
not yet, but if we need to be, then
yeah.
We don't even have quantum computing at reasonable temperatures, right?
Sure.
We can't work a computer at what is it now? 200 Kelvin? It's minus 200 Kelvin. What is it? I forgot. Ridiculous temperatures. I'm just echoing a little bit of what I see in the questions, in the greetings. There's a significant number of people sending you greetings from India because they're very proud of Polkadot. Polkadot did start in India. Is that correct?
No, I think it's.
Why are Indians so proud of Polkadot?
I mean, Indians are proud of many things. So
maybe they're just hitting on you. You are as all of these companies that I talk to. You're decentralized. Where's your main focus? Where's most of your staff in the world?
So yeah, I think that is an important factor to mention. So basically, the chain itself is decentralized, right? So there's like nobody who can actually influence it against its will, right? We have this governance process where all token holders are able to vote on updates and such, right? So as the Web3 Foundation, and then another very important player is Parity, which are sitting in Berlin, they are just proposing changes, right? They have dedicated their time to actually improve the protocol, but eventually it's up to token holders to decide whether something should get into the code or not. To answer your question, the Web3 Foundation is based in Zug. We have an office there. They're actually...
Nothing is based in Zug. I was just there. There's nothing but a lake and the cherry cake shop.
Well, almost. And
it's a tiny town.
Yeah, it's really tiny. But to be fair, I think we are
it's
like
lovely.
25 people in the office. So actually, we are probably one of the few foundations where actually people are in the office. And then, of course, Berlin, the Parity headquarters is there. And since we are a decentralized protocol, like Polkadot, it also makes sense to work decentralized. So we're essentially spread around the world.
I'm in Zurich a lot. I taught for some time at the ETH in Zurich, and every other company that I get in touch with is in Zug. Right? So about a month ago, I thought I'm gonna go to Zug, and I arrived there in the middle of a Sahara sandstorm. It is not the image of Switzerland I have in mind. You know, when the sky is all full of sand and orange, it looked really, really weird.
Well, normally it's pretty nice there.
Oh, God, I like the whole of Switzerland. It's fantastic. Yeah. It's such a beautiful place. The Web3 that we touched upon, what is Polkadot's vision of the Web3? I've been talking to a lot of companies, and everyone is giving me different answers. Some of them say the biggest advantage of Web3 is the democratization. Others say it's the security, the privacy aspect. What does Web3 mean for Polkadot, for the Web3 Foundation?
So I think for me personally, it means ownership, right? So that kind of you own the data that you produce, and you can decide whether you want to share it or not. And if you want to share it, somebody needs to pay for it, right? So this Web2 kind of thing, where we are like the product and all the big companies are drawing from our behavior and selling it. Hopefully at some point this has an end, all right? And it's kind of transferring the ownership back to the users. And with this also the power, right? The power goes back to the users. And yeah, that's essentially it. Probably Radha has
yeah, I think, so I can talk from like Web3 Foundation's like vision statement. It's letting the user like choose their destiny, giving the ownership back to the users. So we don't need like centralized entities sort of defining like, our basic life choices, right? So we want to have this, world of Web3 where people decide what to do with at least like their own data. So give them like the ownership to transact with. I mean, we're talking about like ecosystems in which like users can take part if they're contributing to it, right? So
I'm gonna stick with the topic of the future right now. I'm a little bit older than you guys, and I built and then sold my first company in the internet age in the 1990s. And back then the atmosphere was very much like right now. We live in the wild west of crypto, and back then it was the wild west of the internet, and everybody thought everybody will have a website, everybody will have a say, we'll all work together globally on the internet. And in the end, we all ended up in some echo chamber on Facebook and sharing pictures on Instagram. When the dream of the internet became a reality before the big crash in 2001, Facebook and Google were not born yet. How do you see the future of crypto? If we now are in the Wild West, will this dream end? Will there be another Google and another Facebook that will take control back? Is decentralization humanity's future, or is that just a pipe dream in the end? What are your personal thoughts on that?
So yeah, I can maybe share my personal thought on this. So I believe that decentralization has definitely a future. It's actually what people, they urge to take back ownership, but it's not in all domains, right? I believe that people in some sense want to, use custodial services and don't bother too much with their assets, but it's about having the choice, right? So it's about right now we don't have the choice, and this for example, Polkadot is building the infrastructure for this to actually happen in the future.
Excellent. There are tons and tons of questions in people discussing in the chat next to me, and we need to get to the subject of staking. Yes, it's about time. So if you are an Uphold wallet user and you have DOT, you can stake it. Dr. Jonas, can you explain what staking means? What happens to the stake tokens? Why do I get an APY when I stake? Why do I earn money? I'm just buying the DOT from you and giving it back to you, and you're paying me an interest. What is staking? What does it mean?
Okay, so staking, so the economic security from Polkadot comes from staking, right? Because people are locking their tokens and on behalf of our validators, and those validators are essential to actually, create the consensus that we need on the chain. And once those validators misbehave, we are able to slash the bond that they have, right? So this is actually one of the fundamental principles in economics, where there is risk, there's return. So actually, you bonding your tokens and contributing to the security of the network is rewarded. That sounds probably more scary than it is. Slashes don't happen very often. So when a bond is taken away, but this is a fundamental principle. People or users decide to contribute to the security. They put their tokens at stake, and for this they are rewarded.
Yeah, I have no problem staking my Polkadot. I trust you've been around for a while. I trust the service. I trust my wallet provider Uphold, because we vet the tokens very diligently. But there is a staking craze going on right now. Every Dick, Tom, and Harry has a little protocol and wants you to give them back the tokens you bought to, as you said, ensure their economic future. And don't you think that many of these staking projects that are floating around now are very, very dangerous and their future is anything but secure?
I mean, that's obviously right. I mean, obviously not all of them are sound and they will disappear. But what I think is important for users is to ask themselves what actually their token, when they stake it, contribute to the network. Because in the sense of Polkadot, it's clear, right? You're like providing security for the network, and security is very important for this whole thing to work. If you have other networks where you just stake the token, nothing can happen to the token, and you just get free money, then there is probably something wrong. And I think everybody can decide for themselves, but there need, as I said before, there's some fundamental principle in economics, and it's like there's no such thing as free lunch, right? If there's no risk, then there's no return.
Right. So I can add on top of that, like being a staker, like if you want to be a nominator in like Polkadot, chain, so you have to put some work, to be a nominator. So you have to look at the validators that are performing well, who you can trust. So you're staking your dot on them. So if they make mistakes, you get slashed. If they're doing their job well, which is the case for almost all the validators, you get rewarded. So you're putting your work to sort of find those validators that are going to keep the network secure. You're staking your dot on them, and that work is helping secure the network. And people who stake with like Uphold, Uphold may have a team that selects like these trustworthy validators and stakes those dot on behalf of the users to them.
Yes.
Ultimately, there's something happening here, and this staking mechanism might be different from the other protocols like staking information, but clearly we tied this to the whole security of the network, and as long as you secure the network, you get rewarded.
I was on a panel the other week about staking, and we've basically identified that the same word staking describes three different things. One of them is like Polkadot, like Constellation, where you stake your tokens to run validator nodes, where you make a node where you support the stability, the security of the network. So there's a very clear purpose to the staking. The other one is staking for an idealistic purpose, like the whole Cardano stakers. There's like Safety Alps staking, or bio production of sustainable agriculture in Ireland is one of the biggest Cardano pools. And the third one is the ominous dark pool, where you stake and you don't know what you're staking for. You just lured into it because it pays an current APY of 600%, and after 10 days it's down to 10%, right? So we don't have these problems with Polkadot, and we have looked very closely at the type of tokens that we offer on Uphold. That's why there are not that many. We only currently offer 9 because we take very, very close look at them. And I must say Polkadot is one of my favorite ones to stake on Uphold. Thank you very much for this insightful discussion. Raj in New York, do you want to take it from here?
Of course, Martin. There's 2 questions that I see. Could you briefly explain, just for the crowd, the risks that might be involved with staking, or just generally how the staking process at a 101 level works? We seem to be getting a few questions around that.
Yeah. So if you stake your tokens on the chain itself, you bond your tokens for 28 days, and you generate staking rewards for this. What you do is you select up to 16 validators that you trust and that participate then in the consensus mechanism. If those, like this validator or like the validator that becomes active, misbehaves, then the protocol can actually slash your tokens that you bonded for that validator. That might be a small percentage, and it might go up. Depending on the offense, right? If a validator tries to ridicule the system or like double spend or something, then this is quite a hard offense. But to be fair, this risk is not that high. So you can select up to 16 validators, and you should trust those validators. And like generally, we don't see much slashing going on, right? It's just about providing this token as a security deposit.
Great, thank you. One question.
I should also add on top of that. So most of these validators who are actually running nodes to secure this network, they have their own stake on their validator nodes as well. So if they are making a mistake, even they are going to get slashed, right? So unless it's like a very honest mistake, typically there won't be any slashing on your dot. And for such small mistakes, the percentage of funds that get slashed are very, very less. So unless the validator is like totally malicious and does something that is very detrimental to the network, your funds are like still safe.
Great, thank you. Question from Chris is, what's the correlation? I'm rephrasing a bit. What's the correlation between the value and growth of Polkadot and the parachains?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think ultimately the utility of Polkadot depends on the utility of the parachains, right? As it's an infrastructure protocol, and this basically means that there needs to be economic activity on top of it. And that's the answer. Like the more useful the parachains, the more useful Polkadot.
Excellent. And question from Dennis: how do you vet validators, or can you vet out the validators?
So actually, I posted a link as answer to Richard, where I put down like a small blog post about how to select validators. What are the important factors in finding good validators? I think essentially it boils down to the fact that you need to trust your validators. There are several sources of trust, how you can draw those trusts. Rada mentioned one thing. So some validators, they nominate themselves, right? So they put actual stake on themselves. And that is a strong argument why they believe that they are competent and honest. But there are also other factors, right? They could community members, they could identify themselves and openly say that they are running validators. Then you could, write them, get in contact with them, and just get a feeling for them. And I think this is a very important factor. And also that nominators spend time to look for suitable validators is a very important thing for the economic or for the security of Polkadot, because people actually filter out the bad validator and only the good ones get into the set, right? So there's like this kind of wisdom of the crowd mechanism here. Like if many validators, nominators try to find the good validators, then we end up with a good set of active validators.
Excellent, thank you. One question from Mauricio: how do the staking mechanisms actually provide security for the network?
So that's probably, I answered that before. Like you put down stake, and this is a security deposit for if the validators misbehave, then this can be slashed, and that's an economic incentive to actually not misbehave.
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of miss on Polkadot how validators get elected, how validators get assigned to parachains, and what it takes to actually attack the network. Okay, so all of that is sort of laid out in our Polkadot wiki. So take a look at that and then sort of make your own judgment on how sound the technology is.
Great. And question from James: how does the protocol determine if a validator misbehaves or is not up to standard?
So that's actually part of the consensus mechanism, that validators check each other, right? And if validators find out that somebody misbehaved, then there is like a whole escalation process where new validators come in and actually also check. And this is so secure that the probability that some validator can misbehave and is not detected is like almost zero.
Got it. I think that concludes all the questions. You guys answered most of them in the discussion. Reminder, if any other questions come in, we can answer them at a later time. We'll be posting this as a recording as well. Martin, are you seeing anything from your side?
I have a... We will start with Texas. We will kick a deal from... No. Polkadot ecosystem, parachains.info. That was given. Thank you, Edward, very much for that. Somebody has heard that Polkadot was primarily going to be used by the gaming and NFT side. Can we refute, or what do you have to say about gaming and NFTs on Polkadot?
It's an open protocol, right? I mean, if people decide that those things are useful, then they will have their parachain, and then this will end up being there. I think that is the important thing, right? Polkadot is just neutral. Right? It doesn't make any assumption, or it doesn't judge what is on it. It is up to kind of the users to decide that.
I have one last question, just my personal interest. The Kusama, the canary chain Kusama, is it the first or the biggest one? Because I see that everywhere as being very high in demand. What's so special about Kusama? Is it just one of many, or is it a very special? Does it have a very special place in your heart, Dr. Jonas?
Yeah, I mean, there are people around who love Kusama. There's this mentality of expect chaos. You try funky stuff on it, and people like that. But we also have non-incentivized test nets, right? So we have West End, which is purely test network. There's like the token has no economic value and so on. Yeah, maybe Radha, you also wanted to say something.
Yeah, so Kusama is a blockchain in itself. Like, it has its own governance, its own token, its own set of like parachains. So one thing about Kusama is that it's very fast. It's very agile than Polkadot. So everything on Polkadot is deliberately made slower. Polkadot is a more conservative blockchain, whereas Kusama is for innovation. So if you're out there, you're a developer, and you want to test out like how your application does in a real world blockchain, ecosystem. So you can go to Kusama, become a parachain there, and sort of test it out right away.
Dr. Galen, Dr. Razari, thank you very much for joining us on Uphold. Let's do this again. If you have any big announcements, any special event, do get in touch with us. We can do this anytime. Dot is one of our favorite assets on Uphold. And enjoy the rest of your day.
Sure.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Like end of this month, there is Polkadot Decoded. It's like our biggest event, curated by the community. It's happening in 5 major cities in the world. So check out like Polkadot Decoded like conference, which is happening end of like June. Yeah.
And participation is also free, right? I believe.
Yeah, participation is free. Yeah, everything is free.
Excellent.
Yeah. Excellent.
Thank you. Thanks.
Raj, do you have some announcements?
Of course. Thank you, Radhakrishna, Jonas, Martin. Very insightful conversation. Thanks for joining. Please be on the lookout for our next webinars. We have LF0, Luna,